Time to make sure that the website is responsive and looks great on every device, every breakpoint. Now, if we were building this website from scratch, which we will be doing in the advanced module, we would have a lot more work to do. But because we were using a UI kit, the Reloom library, most of the responsiveness should be ready by now, and we just need to make tweaks and adjustment to make sure that the actual design that we have looks good, because they've made general decisions, such as when we need 2 columns or 1 column and text sizes and stuff like that. So we will need to make tweaks and adjustments. Let's get started. So we know that the website, I'm going to start with the homepage, obviously, and we know that it looks great on the desktop breakpoint. So let's head into the tablet and see how things look over there. So the first thing I see that they've decided that now we should have like 1 column. And I actually think that we can still keep 2 columns here. So let's open up the page. Let's select the first section and let's see what they did here. So basically they have the container and there was probably a grid inside. Here we go. We have a grid and they've made changes to the grid. So just so that you know, we didn't dive deep into grids yet, but we can click here to manage how many columns we have. And here we have 2. And if you make changes, for example, here in the breakpoint, they've changed this to a single column by just deleting 1 column. Everything automatically flows in 1 column. So I want to bring back the column. So I'm just adding here another column. Now the gap is a little bit too big, I would say. So let me just make the gap a little bit smaller and done. Yeah, I think that's actually looking pretty good and pretty decent. So let's see what else we have here. This section looks pretty decent. It's looking okay. Testimonial looking good. Locations looking good. So the rest of the page looks pretty good. Not too much to do here. Let's test out to see what the mobile menu looks like. So you notice that automatically the menu has turned into a hamburger menu. And let's open that up to see what that looks like. So we have it animating and it's taking up the whole screen. Now sometimes that's nice. I don't want this to take up the whole screen. So let's see how we edit this. Let me double click on the nav bar. Let's go to the settings. And because this is a nav bar, this is Webflow's native nav bar, we have here menu, show, hide, and how it's working. Let's open this. And now we can actually see the whole menu here. And let's see, I think this is this navbar menu. Yep, you can see that this is the whole wrapper. And let's go to the styling. And you can see that this one is set up to be 100% DVH, stands for dynamic viewport height. So whatever based on, the browser of the tablet probably takes up a little bit of space. So it's dynamically calculating what is the size so that it will take up the whole screen. Instead of this, let me set this to auto, which would basically set it up to be the size that we have here. And this, I think, looks better, but it, for some reason, has huge padding. I don't know why. Let's change this to 1 REM, just like the top. Yeah, to me, this looks like a more solid navigation. I'm going to leave it this way. I'm going to head back into setting and hide the menu. And so that now is fixed and should be applied to all smaller breakpoints as well. So let's continue going down. Let's head to the mobile landscape. Now here is probably not a good idea to maintain these 2 columns. So let's select the header component again, and now let's delete this. So I'm right-clicking it, delete column, and now it's looking this way with 1 column. And what do we have here? First of all, I would love to have a little bit more space at the top here of the header component. I can do that maybe by adding a little bit of padding here at the top. One thing that we see, though, is that at this point, know that this is mobile landscape. The screen actually is going to be very, very short. And we have the hero section probably set up to be, let's see if it's set up to take up the whole screen. No, it does not have a height of 100. Maybe they're setting up the height somewhere else. Container large. No. Padding section large. Header component. Okay. So minimum height is auto. So that's great. I thought they were going to try to force it to 100% vertical height here as well. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I think that the line here is a little bit too long and the text doesn't look great that it only has 2 words here. I want to make it so that the container is a little bit shorter, so the text breaks a little nicer. So for the hero header content, let's give it some maximum width, maybe 70%. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, so that makes it smaller. That actually looks better, I think. We do have something weird here where we can see that the highlight that we have is going on top of the E here, which we don't want. Previously, it was at the beginning of the line, so we didn't have this problem, but we'll fix this problem in a second. I'm just trying to figure out which width I like for this container, and I think, yeah, for me, 85 works well. I think the text looks better this way. Let's go and check out this text highlight here and maybe make it a tiny bit smaller. So instead of -20 on both sides, let's set it to -10, -10, and then 10 here and 10 here. So basically making it a tiny bit smaller, and I think this looks better. And the images that we have here, I also want to make them smaller because now they're huge. It's going to take a while to scroll through them. So let's make them a tiny bit smaller. So we got the image wrapper. Let's set also kind of like a maximum width to it. Let's set it to 85 as well. I think this looks better, even maybe 75%. This looks good, but for the image, I don't want this to align to the left. I actually want this to be in the center. So you can see that because this image wrapper is inside of a grid, we have this grid child properties here. You can see that the grid cell is actually larger and the image wrapper is actually smaller. And you can see that it's not aligned anywhere. So let's align it to the center. And now we can see that the header image wrapper is centered within the grid cell, which is fantastic. That's what we want. Actually, one thing that I'm thinking about right now, looking at this heading, is that it's too small for an H1. I want this to be a little bit bigger. So let's go to H1 and see what the text size is. 2.5. Let's make it 3. Maybe 3.5. Yeah, I actually like this better. Let's look at this compared to this. So it's a little bit bigger than the tablet, but because we have one column, I think this actually looks better. Yeah, so let's keep it this way. Fantastic. I like this. We can continue here. This is also a little bit too big. So let's go ahead and give this a maximum width of 75%. We also want this to be centered. Now in this case, okay, so in this case I've, by accident, made the image itself smaller. But if we make the wrapper of the image smaller, let's give that 75%, then we can also, because it's also the wrapper is inside of a grid, we can also use this justification to center it this way. So this is great. This is great. This looks good as well. Location is turning up this way. I think this looks pretty good. And we can continue to the last breakpoint. Okay, on the mobile breakpoint, there's a few things. Number one, now we actually don't need this wrapper that we have here to take 85%. It's okay if this goes back into 100%. So let's go here and set the max width to 100%. Okay, this looks a little better. This is a little bit smaller here. So why is this so small? Maybe we have here the image wrapper. Oh, we've got padding. Let's remove the padding of the image wrapper. Okay, so less padding. And we actually made this maximum width of 75%. Actually, let's give it 85% here. So this looks good. Maybe this will turn this image to 85 as well here on the mobile. So change that to maximum width of 85. So this looks good. There's only one thing that I'm thinking about, which is the margins or padding from the left and right are a little bit too tight for my liking. I find it difficult to read when the text is too close to the edges. Now, the guys at Reloom made the build really easy for us because each one of the section has this padding global. And you can see that in section 1, everything is inside padding global. In section 2, everything is inside padding global. And padding global basically sets up 5% of padding from left and right for us. I think that in the case of the mobile portrait, I'm going to increase that a tiny bit. So maybe 7 and 8. Okay. Personally, I think this looks a little bit better. There's more room to breathe. And after all, this is a yoga website. So I think this looks great. The homepage is actually ready, and we can continue to see what the other pages looks like. Let's continue to the classes page and see what happens here when we move to tablet. This looks okay. But this, let's actually choose this one in the tab so we can see how the grid looks like. This doesn't look good. First of all, they're very tall, I would say, and perhaps it's best to have 2 columns here. So one thing that we're going to do is to make sure that they're not so tall. I don't even remember what sets the height here. So yeah, it's the card wrapper set to 460 pixels. Let's change that to maybe 350. Okay, this looks better. Now let's adjust the grid. So I'm selecting the classes grid, and I'm going to click this. First thing I want to do is right-click here, delete column. Okay, this looks good, better. I think we can even reduce this gap here to maybe 30 and 30. Okay, so this looks good. Let's continue here. Okay, so what do we have here? Here we have a different problem where I think that having 3 columns here, the sticky one and 1, 2 is probably not the best layout. So let's turn this item, which is also in a grid, let's turn that into a single column. So instead of image on the left and then text on the right, let's set it to image on the top and then text below. So let's edit this grid and let's delete this column. Whoa, now we've got a weird thing going on, and I think I know why. You can see here that we've got a text, and the text is very, very long, and for some reason it's not breaking it. And you can see here at the top that it says max content. So it's trying to allow the content to have its maximum size, and that's actually pretty weird. I don't want this. So I'm going to set this up to the maximum size to 1 FR. What is auto fit? No, not auto fit. Let's set this up this way. No, not max content. I want to actually remove the max content. So let's delete this column. Default. Yep, exactly. That's what I want. Default with 1 FR. FR is basically the frame of the column. So 1 FR, that's what I want. Now the text is breaking nicely. And we've got the image on the left. The image still has, and you can see here on the team image, it has a width of 12 rem and height of 20. Let's see what happens if we change this to just 100%, the width. Okay, so now it's taking up 100%. And if I want to, I can make this shorter, like the height smaller, but actually it looks pretty good this way. So let's see, we're scrolling. This actually looks pretty good. So I like this layout. This is good. Here, we probably want to break this down into 1 column. So edit the grid, delete this column. See what we have here this way. And then this one, we don't probably need that much space between these columns. So let me reduce that a little bit. That looks good. Yep, so tablet looks good. Let's see what happens here on the mobile portrait. Okay, now we've got a problem. So problem that we didn't have here, because here we still had space for all of them. But here, we have a problem. And it's a great place to talk about something that we haven't covered before in a property of the Flexbox that is called a wrap. So right now, Flexbox is trying to stack the elements within it horizontally, one next to another. And no matter how many they are, it's trying to stack them all in one row. Wrap basically means that if there's not enough space, don't go crazy and have them come outside. Just move them into a different row. So you see, I set them into wrap, and now it's just basically breaking down a line. Now we can set the alignment of how we want, the 2 lines to align itself. But overall, I think this actually looks great. So wrap is a pretty powerful property of Flex. So that looks great. This actually looks good as well. This automatically now broke down from 2 columns to a single column. However, now we have something weird where this content that we had here, which was sticky position to be sticky on the left side, is now sticky on top of everything. So we don't want that to still be sticky. So let's see where the sticky position is done. Here, sticky position. So right now on this mobile breakpoint, let's change this to just relative or static. Both of them are just normal, and we don't need this top. Actually, let's put it static. Yeah, so now it goes back to the normal behavior. Takes up space, scrolls normally. This looks great. This looks great. All right. This page is coming along nicely. Let's see this. Now let's check out here. Here, I think that, yeah, this is taking up the whole screen, 100%. And you can see here, 100% small viewport height. Let's keep it. I think that in this case, it's okay. Over here, now you can see that the wrap is wrapping into 3 lines, but that's okay. Don't mind. This doesn't look good, though. Here, I think at this point, at mobile portrait, we probably just want to have a single column. Let's delete this column. Yep, this probably looks good. Okay. By the way, I just remembered something that we didn't do previously that's got nothing to do with responsiveness, but is important for you to know. Right now, these cards, I don't think they're clickable. Let's try this out. I'm clicking on them. They're not clickable because we forgot to make them a link. Okay, so how do we make them a link? They need to be inside of a special div that is linkable. And you can see it here. We have link block. Now, in this case, we already have the card overlay that sits on top of everything, and we'd like that to be the link. So we can actually change this one by right-clicking, convert to link block, and that is not going to work because it says link elements cannot be nested into each other. It already has a button inside of it, the card overlay. We can't have a button and then inside of it another button. So let's get started by removing this button, and then we'll replace it with a fake button so that it still works. And pick the card overlay, convert to link block. Now you can see here that this is linkable. And under settings, we can go ahead and make sure that we pick current class. And then if we preview this, now if I'm clicking here, it takes me to the Kundalini Yoga class. This is what I wanted, so that works well. So now this is actually a link, which is great. Now let's just bring in a fake button. How we're going to do that? Into the card overlay, let's add just like a text, normal text block, and call this learn more. And then let's just give it the classes of a button. So it was button, and then I think is secondary, and then is alternate, if I remember correctly. Let's see this. Yeah, looks like a button. And if you click on this, you know, anyway, the whole thing is linkable. So let's see if I go here and click learn more. Learn more. Learn more. Okay, works. Let's just make sure that, yeah, everything works properly. Then we can continue. Let's preview this. And if I click on this, yeah, it does work. Fantastic. So with that, let's continue to the next one. We have instructors. Let's go here and preview this. This has 1 column, which is actually too much. I think we can go back into 2 columns here. So let's see where the grid is. The grid is in probably this. Where is the grid? Oh, it's the collection item is the grid. Yeah, no, the collection list is probably the grid. That's fantastic. So let's take that, turn that into 2 columns. That looks good for now. This looks good. This looks good. Let's check out the mobile. Mobile is turning into a single column, so this is good for this. Looks good. Okay, mobile. So every time, the way my method is picking up the breakpoint and then scanning the whole page, seeing that it looks good all the way to the end. Okay, and that's great. So this page is done as well. Last one, yoga handbook. Start reviewing it. Looks good, looks good, looks good, looks good. Back to the top, next breakpoint. In this case, there's not enough space between the actual text and the navigation. So let's see where the wrapper is. Maybe we'll take this header 15 component and just give it a little bit of top padding, something like this. This looks good now. Scroll, scroll. I think looking at this card, pricing card, it has way too much padding at the top and bottom. Let's click it. For some reason, it has more padding top to bottom than left to right. I'm going to reset it by holding the Option and Shift key and just moving them together. So now they're kind of like uniform, one REM on all sides. To me, that looks good. You know what? I might want to give this like a maximum width. No, I don't know. This is okay. I was thinking maybe it's too wide, but we can keep it this way. Back to the top. Now we have a little bit too much padding here. So let's see where we gave this padding to the header component. Now we can actually reduce this. Now it's nice. This looks good. This looks good. Padding looks good here. Okay, so with that, we've basically covered all of our pages. The website is responsive, and we can move to the next step. I'll see you in the next video.